Okay, it's recording.
Excellent.
Thanks. Is it okay if you could tell me about your life before you went into the service?
Yeah, sure. So, can you hear me fine? I got my earpiece in. Okay.
Yes, I can hear you fine.
So before I went to the service, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I I think I was getting through rebellious teenager stages. I ended up actually going into military school. I went to the New Jersey, not New Jersey, the New York National Guard Challenge Program, and from there. Um, when I was finished with that, then they gave me the option I could have went to college or I could go into the military. And when I went into the military, I decided to go into the army instead of going into school. I didn't think I was signing in, and I didn't realize that I could still go to school. So I thought since I signed my papers, I had to go into the army. So when I went to do that, I found out later in basic training that it was the opposite. But yeah, I still got some pretty good experiences from there, from going to military school.
Wow. What was your family like?
My family, they were fun. My dad is first generation, um, 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 a Latino, well, that's what we call it. My sister always knows what it is. Um, Afro Latinos. We're Puerto Rican from Brooklyn. But his parents, my grandparents, they were both born in Puerto Rico, and my father was the youngest of nine. And then, and my mother also grew up in Brooklyn, as well. Now, my father he never served, but my cousin Chrissy, who I grew up with, he was in the Navy. And my uncle Johnny, his dad was in the Navy. My uncle Eddie, he retired out of the army. Actually in Hawaii. He still lives in Hawaii. And my grandfather, apparent from the story of our family history, was that he had changed his last name and signed up to be in World War II back in the 40s. So and he was
Wow.
only 15 though at the time. So he wasn't legally allowed to go. So he changed our last name to his mother's last name. And he switched the two names around and said he was a different person and he was 18 and they let him go overseas to go I believe he fought in the South Pacific.
Wow.
Hmm. Yeah, I think he also served in the early Korean War as well, but
Like
he ended up becoming a merchant marine.
wow. Um, do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have an older sister, Tawana. She's 41, I want to say. I'm not really sure. I have a younger sister, Heather, who just turned well, I have two younger sisters. I have one younger sister just turned 30 over the summer, and the other one just turned 27 on the 17th. And I have a
Wow.
little brother who's 17, and he was born I mean, and he's a cool guy. We're 21 years apart though, so there's a big difference in the age.
I see. Um, where did you go to school?
I went to school and like I was saying earlier, I graduated from military school in upstate New York. But almost all my schooling was in Brooklyn, and I did 2 years in Staten Island, for high school.
I
But for
see.
the most part, everything was all in New York.
Um, when did you join the military?
I I started basic training in August. Let's say I want to say August 10th of 2001. So exactly almost a month and one day before 9/11.
I see. Why did you join up?
Um, well, I think at that time I really didn't think I had much options. I really didn't put too much thought into college. I didn't, I was good in school, but I didn't like school as much. I like to read a lot. I was a big reader at that age, and I used to self-educate a lot, but that doesn't always get you where you need to get into the schools. Um, at that time, I figured I didn't know what else I would do. I was a seven. I signed in at 17, so I thought that was going to be my option. I had family that did it, and that's pretty much why I joined.
Um, what was the training like?
Training? I gotta say, I mean, I've always been I did a lot of martial arts and stuff as a kid, so I had a lot of fun with training. I I mean, when we first get, I went to Fort Benning. One of the things, so I'm not sure if it still is, but back then, Fort Benning was one of the last few um, gender separated. I want to say it was gender segregated basic trainings. So when you went, it was an all male basic training.
I
That's
see.
the Yeah. So it was home in the infantry. So while we were in Fort Benning, I mean, I did a lot of camp as a kid, and I like to play outside. I did obstacle courses, so I was fun for me, and I think I had a lot of fun. Met a lot of cool guys. I'm still very good friends with one of the guys that I met from basic training about 21 years ago. I met this guy, and we're still good pals. The It was, I mean, you would wake up first thing in the morning. You have to wake up with PT. And then one second, like, kids are switching. Sorry, one second. Hey, guys, you got to keep it down. You can't, no, let DJ go in. Let him use the water. No. Sorry about
That's
that.
okay.
It's getting near, they're switching out to who's going to do what for the night. So sorry.
Oh,
Where was I? So training it was fun. Basic training. I mean, for me personally, I mean, it was a lot of hard work. There was a lot of push-ups, a lot of hiking. I remember we had to do when we were leaving basic training, we had to do I think it was 10 miles with 80 pounds on your back.
wow.
And yeah, it was. And after that, we did a thing called FTX, where I don't know if they still call it that anymore, but where they bring you to the field, out in the field, and you would do a training exercise, and we did war games, and it was like if you were really good throughout the your time, not want to say the year, but while you're serve during your basic training, they would let you do your war games and then let you play. Like we have to capture the other team and take prisoners and stuff. Just playing around in it, and you have to keep your rifles and stuff. And we had got lucky because one of our we had our drill sergeants would switch. We had a lot of reservists, and the
Mm-hmm.
one guy was a Vietnam vet, and he was showing us all these cool tricks. So we had to like dig holes, and he was sitting in a foxhole with your rifle out. And that foxhole is a little hole that you dig in to kind of give you cover.
Mm-hmm.
We were laying there, and gave us strings, so we tied strings to all our M16s. So when the lieutenant would come out at night, he would walk and see who fell asleep in their foxhole, and take their rifle away from them.
Uh,
So what we so what we would do, they had clamps, they couldn't shoot or anything. It was just you'd be used to holding it. Um, so while we sorry about that.
that's okay.
I need one second. Let me get you first.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I had to
That's
unmute.
okay.
I had to mute it for a second. They when they know that I'm talking to somebody, then they like, oh, let's ask an extra question that we know we can't get away with normally. So I told him he keep messing around, he's gonna lose his video games.
Oh,
But I remember it was cool because we had did that, made like a little web, and in our little web thing, when we had buried it under the leaves. So when the lieutenant came in to see who was sleeping, he stepped on the cord and everybody's rifles jerked, and it made everybody wake up. So we were the only platoon that didn't have anybody fall asleep because we set the booby trap. Uh, he also taught us how to use some of our. I don't know if I should be telling this on here,
That's okay. That's
but
good.
they taught us how to you know what an MR, are you familiar with an MRE
Um,
is?
I think I've heard of it before, but I never got the time to look it up. I assume it's some sort of weapon, right?
No. So MRE stands for a meal ready to eat.
Oh, right,
So
right now I
so
remember.
it's a they come in different meals and stuff. It's kind of like pureed food, and it's not very tasty. I mean, if you get the spaghetti, you were lucky because it came with a bag of Skittles. But so and I'm so amazed that I still remember that. But we so what in there it has a little heater. You put water and it's heat. So the
Hmm.
guy showed us says you add the Tabasco sauce to it and it's like pepper spray. So we were using that, like playing around with all the other guys when they were sleeping, and we would put it down so they wake up and like, oh, it smells like hot peppers, and they all start running out, and then we would take them hostage. He's like, all right, you're coming with us. So that was one of my fond memories of it. It was fun playing. It was just everybody was having a blast, and um, they were making the best out of the situation. And even though we had to march another 10 miles with all that equipment on our back,
Okay, what military branch were you placed in?
I was in the army.
Okay, which unit were you assigned to?
What unit? I was with the 81st Ordnance Battalion.
Um, what was your rank?
Me, I was a private first class.
Okay, when you completed the training, where were you stationed?
So, after we were done in Fort Benning, I was stationed in Redstone Arsenal. It's in Alabama. And at Redstone Arsenal, we would, from there, that's where you learn, it's called AIT, that's where you learn your job. And you learn what kind of, what the job that they give you. So I originally went in for mortuary affairs. I was gonna work with dead people. That's at that time that interested me. Um, after the so I was going for that, and my contract got lost. And after my contract got lost, they gave me an option to be either infantry or to be in an ammunition specialist. So I ended up going to school to pretty much be a stock guy, but but it was interesting. I had to learn about all the different ammunition that we used at that time and how to place it and how to send it back. And I've got some fun, interesting stories about that too.
Um, when and where were you deployed?
I actually did not get deployed. I was
Mm,
supposed to go. My unit was deployed to Afghanistan, and I was on my supposed to go there. Where we were doing a night training before we went,
mm,
and I
mhm.
tripped and I tore a good amount of muscles around my shoulder,
Ouch.
and yeah, and it was a bad injury. And I then we were leaving, and they were trying to see if it was okay, and we were going
Hmm.
to let me pass, and I re-injured it again. But the second time I re-injured it, the ball from my shoulder got stuck on top of the socket. So it
Oh.
was jammed like that. Ah, very painful. Sorry. That was a little gross. So I got out on so they were letting me out on a medical disability because they said at that age, those kind of injuries don't really heal properly.
Oh.
And I've had 38 dislocations since then. So
Mm.
they were not lying. It does not heal right.
Okay, what was it like in the hospital?
In the hospital, um, so and they don't really keep you in the hospital for too long when I was in there because it was a shoulder injury, but the amount of damage was in it. It was more of it had to heal than had to giving because I didn't have to get surgery completed for it. They wanted me to get surgery for it, but I didn't want to put a metal rod through my arm. This is what they wanted. I'm glad because I heard now they just take a little thing and they electrocute it and they zap the muscles back together. But I did a lot of physical therapy outside, and I had to wear this big, big foam sling thing that keeps your arm up so that it doesn't move back and forth, and it is not comfortable. I'll tell you that. But yeah, I did a lot of wearing slings and physical training. I mean, physical therapy outside of the hospital. They really didn't keep you in there that long.
And, did you have any friends that were lost in the war in Afghanistan?
Not in. I've had some friends that were injured. I can't say I knew some guys that passed away after their service or in another deployment, not in maybe then they had to, I knew a guy that got deployed to Iraq. After he left Afghanistan, came back home and then went to Iraq, and then he got killed there. But I really didn't know a lot of guys. I knew a couple of people that got shot. I knew a couple of people that were injured by explosives, where like an explosive went off or something. And I know a guy that has like he still has his back has a lot of wounds from shrapnel from a grenade or some sort of IUD that exploded. So I do know a lot of people that are still dealing with injuries or they were injured there, but not so much that were killed there. At least in my group of friends.
Um, when were you discharged?
So I did about 2 years of my service, and that's when my injury, my because of my injury, they had to discharge me. So I would say in October. It was not, yeah, it was around the end of 2002. So I was coming on my second year when they discharged me because of my injury.
Okay, do you have any long or short-term injuries?
So the one I was speaking was my arm would be one of my longest injuries that I've had from that. It's still like I still like when I go running too long or when the weather changes severely. Sometimes like my hands will still go numb. I'll still have like a tingling feeling in my arm for like a couple of minutes. So I do have a lot of nerve damage from that injury.
Um, what was your life like after you left the service?
Uh, well, I was about to be 19. I I went back to my parents' house, and at that point you've already did stuff, so there's no more going back to being a kid. So I had to go, to find a job. I had to start paying bills. And there was no more free ride at mom's house. At dad's house, I had to pay rent to stay there. And it looks like I felt like it was provided like a little more maturity on there. I mean, not saying that I was more mature, but I feel like there was a more air of mature sense of maturity and what I had to get done was more that gotten rooted.
Um, you don't have to answer this if you want to, but what was the transition from being out of the military, or was the transition from being out of the military difficult? You don't have to answer this if you want to.
Oh, no, that's fine. I mean, I guess because of my injury prevented me from seeing actual combat. I think that part is what maybe shielded me from some of the PTSD parts that I think a lot of my other brothers in green and sisters in green have received. Like some of the I know people that got deployed. And one of my good friends I still talk to, she's a staff sergeant now, and we were in together. And oh, sorry. What's up, man? I need help to make this shower. Okay, Shelby, can I come back in about 30 seconds?
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I don't want you to pause it. I just need he needs me to cut the shower off. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Thanks. Thanks. All right. Oh.
I also watch you.
Yes, you go to my room. Did you guys? Sorry.
Yeah, I just paused the recording for the time being.
Okay, no problem. That's fine. I'm sorry about that. It's just Yeah, the dad life. Always got to do something, right?
So, since you said you never experienced actual combat, but you have experienced combat.
No. I personally have. I have a lot of my friends and friends that I know that did experience contact the combat and dealing. Me personally, I didn't go see any. I haven't didn't go. Wasn't deployed to see it. When I originally went in, I was supposed to be deployed to Korea, but I was 17 still. So they kept me in the States, and then that's when my injury happened when I was in Washington. I was stationed in Washington. That's when the injury happened on my way to Afghanistan.
I
So
see.
unfortunately, I mean, I did. That is one of the bigger regrets that I have. I can say. I mean, I don't really. I'm not a guy that really regrets things in life, but that's one of the things that I believe that I have a regret for, is that some of my buddies who went over there. I had a good friend Cooper who did get shot. He lived, but he got shot in his butt, and and I always kind of felt like, because he me and him were always together. I always had his back, so
Mhm.
I always kind of felt I guess a little responsible that I wasn't there for him, even though it's not something that I could have helped. I always just felt regretted that I couldn't be there to have his back during that time.
And, after 9/11 happened, what did you try to join up into the service again?
Well, 9/11 happened while I was in the service. So that happened right at the that happened 1 month into basic training for me. Um I actually remember that day crystal clear. Um but because as being a New Yorker, it was that was a day that burned into me. But I would have liked to re-enlist. I probably would have re-enlisted if I could, but due to my injury, I wouldn't be able to. Because of
Mhm.
my, I mean, I'd have to get the surgery at that time. They wouldn't let you in if you had like a metal rod in you.
I
So
see.
at that time, I couldn't re-enlist him. By the time I've heard about the new surgery, they did electricity. I was just a little bit too old for that, and now it's like I had other responsibilities.
Um, were you given any medals or awards?
Um, I the only medal I got, because I didn't go overseas, other than I did get a sharpshooter badge for rifle, and a medal for that. And then said I got the one that everyone got for Operation Enduring Freedom, just for serving during that time. I didn't, unfortunately, not being able to get deployed, and during that time when everything was just getting crazy while we were there, we spent a lot of our time preparing gear and preparing the vehicles to be shipped overseas and doing a lot of that. So we really didn't do much to earn any medals. But if I had gotten deployed, I probably would have won a bunch. I got awarded a lot more medals, just because there's some you get just for certain campaigns and being certain places and doing things. And I know a lot of the guys that I was serving with and I was always buddies with, they had gotten those, and I'm sure whatever they had signed up with at that age, I was going to sign up. If they were doing it, I was going to do it, because when you're 17 and you're in the service, you just follow. Everybody becomes your big brother, so you just start following them around. We're going to the airport. All right, let's jump out planes. Let's do it.
Um, did you attend ceremonies honoring veterans who served in Afghanistan and Iraq like yourself? Or, I mean, did you
I
attend any ceremonies?
I've I volunteered at the VA a couple of times to go help over there. I've been they have a lot of these little ceremonies honoring people. So I've been to them here and there, or sometimes they'll put like a ceremony for talking about the vets and people who passed away, while also doing something else. So I've been to a few of those. I can't really think of any directly off the top of my head that I've been to that was just specifically for that reason. Usually it's they'll be honoring the soldiers, and they're having a wrestling show, and the money from the wrestling show will go to um, veterans, or to prisoners of war, to Palmia. And I like to donate to that as well as to which I donate to the Wounded Warriors. So I donate to that too. So, yeah. Sometimes you could do just little things there to try to help out other veterans.
Those are my questions.
Oh, okay. Well, do you have any other random questions? I know, like I told, I'd probably go off and tell a million stories, but yeah, I mean, if there's any stories or anything you'd like, I'd gladly be able to answer for you.
Not that I know of right now, but I can let you know.
Yeah, if you have, I got one funny story before you go. It was a scary story, but it's probably funny. So,
Okay.
where we were stationed, there was a lot of special forces guys. I know. I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to say their unit name, but they're very, very special, elite warriors. And when I worked into the ammo supply corner of the ASP, they would have to bring in all their unused weapons. And one of the pranks they'd like to do is they'd bring a bunch of grenades, but they take all the pins out and just put tape on it.
Oh,
So when you get it, you're going, oh, this big box of grenades. And then everybody has to run out and get people to come clean it out and stuff. And I mean, well, now looking back on it, I was like, that was pretty funny. But back then, it wasn't funny at all. It
that's
was
really
scary.
funny.
Well, all right, Shelby, though. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you have questions later, you can always feel free to ask. And did you ever get in touch? If you, like I said, I got a couple other guys. If I hear of anybody else or anyone says that they're interested, I could definitely send them your way. When do you have to turn this in, your project in?
Um, Technically, I don't really have a due date. Well, I do, but I was given an extension, so until I was at my freshman year of college, but I don't think I'm gonna intend to take the deadline. But I plan to continue on the project after I get this award.
Nice. Well, I wish you the best, and I hope you get the award. I
Thank
said
you.
you were very interesting to meet. And yeah, like I said, if you have any questions for me, definitely you have my number. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.